With version 1.2 releasing in a few hours, there's a lot to be excited about. Arriving with it are an incredible number of events, and with those events, a boatload of astrite, pulls, and upgrade materials. And of course, later in the patch, a free limited 5-star character. However, not everything in version 1.2 is free. It'll take a bit more than logging in and completing minigames to gain access to characters like Zesa or the 2 limited weapons also releasing in this patch. When you pull on these banners and pray for that limited character or weapon, you're also pulling for all of the other things on those banners, like the 4 stars. The fact of the matter is that even though these characters and weapons are just 4 stars, they can still have an impact. Some characters gain incredible utility and strength through their dupes that can allow them to take on new roles across team compositions or dramatically increase their effectiveness in their best team comps. Some 4-star weapons can nearly double their effectiveness with enough copies, and this difference can be extremely noticeable across gameplay. However, some characters and weapons, at least at this point in the game, are a lot better than others. Today we'll be breaking down the 4 banners we'll be seeing across version 1.2, from Zesa to Jiangle, as well as their limited weapons Rhyme-Draped Sprouts and Verity's Handle. While we won't be diving into the value of these limited outcomes, we will be examining which 4-star characters and weapons on the banners can provide some great value across your account. Some of these character sequence nodes are absolutely crazy. As always, if you're enjoying this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Going through our banners chronologically, Zesa is the first one up. And wow, she came with the crew. Bundled alongside Qixia, Baizhi, and Sanhua, Zesa's banner has a lot of potential value due to the fantastic scaling that all 3 of these 4-star characters have with their copies. Qixia gains quite a bit from her sequence nodes, but most of her great upgrades are at later levels. Her first few focus on increasing her personal damage and energy generation, but her S6 is where things get a little spicy. With her S6, Qixia becomes a universal buffer that grants a 25% bonus to basic attack damage to the entire team. Considering how Zesa is a basic attack-oriented damage dealer, what this means is that Qixia at S6 could be a very strong combination with her. Definitely something to keep in mind if you're pulling for Zesa and experimenting with her team comps. Moving on, Baizhi is another character that has some fantastic synergies, especially at later sequence nodes. While Baizhi has a lot of nodes that unfortunately focus on improving her low personal damage, her S5 grants her a revive stronger than Verina's, and her S6 grants her team a 12% glacial damage bonus across their rotation. What this means is that at S6, Baizhi could have a lot of potential as a better raw buffer than Verina for your Zesa teams. She's definitely another option to look into if you get there. The last character up is Sanhua, and her sequence nodes are heavily focused on her own personal damage. Pretty much every single one adds either quality of life, like interruption resistance, or more damage in her rotations. Her S5 is where her dupes get very interesting, as she'll no longer need to manually detonate her ice creations, giving her a lot of potential off-field damage. Her S6 is another great team-wide buff to attack, up to 20%. Sanhua will likely be Zesa's best buffer if you want to play her on-field, with Sanhua's built-in basic attack damage buff, and at S6, that massive attack boost. Overall, these 4-star characters are pretty damn good. They're great because they all have some fantastic synergy with Zesa's kit in one way or another. You can slot these 4 stars in across a lot of her teams. And at higher level dupes, some might have the ability to outperform 5-star characters in that role. On the other hand, Jiangle's banner is a different story, and it's a way worse story. Kuro is giving out Jiangle for free, and his banner's 4-star characters basically confirm that. He doesn't synergize at all with 2 of them, and he doesn't have much with the 3rd. Danjin and Alto are sub-DPS buffers that can sometimes play as a main DPS. Their buffs are great, but their buffs are attribute specific. Both of these character sequence nodes are also very heavily focused on personal damage, but gain a team-wide buff at S6, with Danjin boosting attack and Alto boosting crit rate. As an Electro character, Jiangle can synergize at very high constellations, but he will be completely wasting their outro skill buffs. banners. They have a much better spot on a lot of other teams. Yanwu is a bit more universal, as a defense scaling sub DPS that focuses on staggered damage. His most notable sequence node is at S4, which gives him minor sustaining ability through a shield. However, nothing really makes him stand out in teams that don't focus on coordinated attacks, like Jinxi's. What this ultimately means is that Jiangle's banner has some of the most unsynergistic 4-stars it could have with the limited character. My recommendation is, unless you really want his dupes, is to skip this banner entirely. Moving on, with these character banners come their weapons, and these weapon banners are polar opposites of the characters. Zesa's weapon banner simply sucks. Not because her weapon is bad, but because all of the 4-stars on it are either incredibly niche or genuinely useless. Dauntless Evernight and Hollow Mirage are two defense-focused weapons. They have one effective wielder each in the entire game, and oftentimes these weapons are outperformed by their Concerto energy-generating counterparts, or even 3-star weapons. Jinzo Keeper is an attack-scaling stat stick. There is no reason to ever use this weapon if you pull Zesa's weapon. Its only purpose is a consolation prize if you pull on Zesa's weapon banner without getting the weapon. But the weapon banner is guaranteed, so that's very unlikely to happen. In my honest opinion, pulling for Zesa's weapon will be a painful journey, because there's either limited or no use for any of the 4-star weapons you might get. Something had to be done to offset the immense value of her character banner. While Jiangle's 4-star characters on his banner aren't the best, his 4-star weapons are actually pretty good. Mercado falls into a unique class of weapons that generate Concerto energy. It'll always have a place on a lot of teams due to its ability to shorten rotations, and can only grow in value in the future as more gauntlet buffers get released. Helios Cleaver and Nova Burst are the other two options. While they're far worse than Mercado, they're undeniably better than Hollow Mirage and Dauntless Evernight, giving general attack buffs that can make them more serviceable with a lot of dupes as DPS options on your roster. These weapons have a lot more potential users, even if they're outperformed by the limited 5-star options. It's clear that Kuro is giving players a lot more incentive to pull on Jiangle's weapon banner. Considering that we're getting him for free, this is a likely move many players will make, and I'm glad we're going to get some value out of that. Overall, these banners are a mixed bag. Zesa's 4-star characters are great, but her 4-star weapons are awful, while Jiangle has almost no synergy with his 4-star characters, and his 4-star weapons are a lot better. At the end of the day, these 4-stars usually aren't the main goal when you pull unlimited banners, but there's something to keep in mind as you progress throughout the game and want to explore new ways to play. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.